If you are anything like me, you've noticed that Season 10 has been one of the most difficult seasons inside of Pokemon Unite, given a few massively overpowered Pokemon, but there is still a ton of Pokemon that carry extremely well within each role. Join me, Jake, your resident content cowboy, yeehaw, while I break down the best solo carry Pokemon for every single role in Unite. Let's start with our all-rounders. Boasting the most absurd win rate and pick rate of all time, of course we have Zacian, one of the most overpowered, if not the most overpowered release inside of Pokemon Unite. Zacian is dominant at every single step of the game in any path or role that you want to put it in. If you put it in the jungle, it's great. If you put it top or bottom, it's great. Getting critical hit at level 2 and its moves at level 5, this Pokemon is absolutely insane right now. The build is Sacred Sword and Agility, and as far as the held items are concerned, you do have one slot that's taken out by Rusted Sword, so you're going to have to figure out your next 2 items. I think a Scope Lens is a very, very great choice, considering this Pokemon gets early critical hit and does insane damage with its basic attacks. You also could run things like a weakness policy, focus band, attack weight. There are many options that are great for Zacian. I really don't think you can go wrong with many of the attack items inside of Pokemon Unite. As far as emblems are concerned, I would recommend running something that looks a little bit like this. 6 brown, 4 white. I have 2 purple, 2 blue on my don't run with scissors build, but there are a lot of good options for something like this. Give yourself HP, give yourself attack, and attack is very, very important with a Pokemon like this. The key to winning with Zacian is understanding its Intrepid Sword passive ability. Zacian uses Eos Energy to power up its attacks and moves. It makes its attacks boosted attacks, and it makes its moves a boosted version of its moves. For instance, with Sacred Sword, it does more damage, it casts faster, it stuns, it's just incredible. Zacian is really based around understanding this ability, getting lots of Eos Energy, and then using it to push your advantage and win fights. Zacian also has a built-in full heal and movement speed increase with agility. Not to mention that once it's boosted, it gives you a shield to 20% of your max HP. And then of course there is the Unite move, which is absolutely insane. You become unstoppable while you're charging it, and you can do insane damage, especially to Pokemon who have recently used a Unite move. Without question, the most dominant solo carry inside of Pokemon Unite. Our next all-rounder that's a dominant solo carry inside of Pokemon Unite is Urshifu, boasting not one, but 2 different playstyles that are incredibly brutal inside the game. One focusing more on securing the single strike style, and the other focusing more on taking out enemies the rapid strike style. Urshifu is without question one of the best carries in Pokemon Unite. If it wasn't for Zacian, we would probably be complaining a lot about Urshifu's level 5 on the rapid strike build. But again, the single strike is amazing, giving it Wicked Blow, one of the most insane moves inside the entire game. One thing to notice is that Urshifu is pretty dang bad until it hits level 5, and that's not a long way to go, but you can actually punish it pretty hard if it's in lane. That's why a lot of people prefer to take this Pokemon into the central area, so it doesn't have to deal with enemy Pokemon. It's easily able to get its level 5 and then make its way either top or bottom to do some serious damage to the enemy team. Currently, the single strike style has a higher win rate, and I think a lot of that is to do with the fact that you don't want to get too close to a Zacian. So the rapid strike style might be countered a little bit, because if you're near a Zacian and it hits you with that Sacred Sword, you are in a ton of trouble. That being said, I think both builds are pretty amazing. If you're running the single strike style, I would recommend using an attack weight, Razor Claw, Muscle Band, Focus Band, Weakness Policy, Float Stone. Something in that area are all really, really great for this Pokemon. I do like the Float Stone because while you're charging up your Wicked Blow, you actually do get a little bit of movement speed, and this Pokemon feels a little slow in general. For a battle item, the eject button actually lets you extend your reach a little bit of your Wicked Blow, so that could be a great choice. For the rapid strike style, I prefer focusing on critical hits with a Muscle Band, Razor Claw, and a Scope Lens. You could also stack an attack weight as well. Attack weight is very good on many of the all-rounders inside of Pokemon Unite, and every point of attack is just more damage you do with all of your moves. For the rapid strike style, I think you should be running something like a full heal so you are able to get yourself out of the many, many stuns that are inside of Pokemon Unite right now. As far as emblems are concerned, once again, brown, white, you could do some critical hit if you're focusing on critical hits with the rapid style build. The real key to Urshifu is hitting that level 5. Once you do, it is time to dominate your opponents. If you're playing the Wicked Blow build, make sure that you have a Wicked Blow ready to secure all of the big objectives. They really can't stop you once you get near them. Our next best solo carry all-rounder is Machamp, a Pokemon that seemingly continues to have a high win rate regardless of what Pokemon is thrown against it. I think the thing that makes Machamp so devastating inside of this meta right now is its ability to get to the back line and do damage to a lot of these squishy mages that are outputting tons of damage in the game right now. Whether you run Dynamic Punch with Cross Chop or Close Combat, Machamp's ability to reposition itself and then use its Unite move is just incredible. One of the most devastating Unites in the game, and it also does very, very well early inside of Pokemon Unite. I think Machamp is a super solid choice right now, especially for solo players. Machamp benefits so much from stacking an attack weight, and its ability to last hit with Karate Chop means that I don't think you should be playing this Pokemon in the central area or jungle at all. It does incredibly well in lane, you're able to get your levels well, and you're able to out-secure many of your opponents. If you're playing with a Pokemon that has an EXP share in your lane as well, you can often get your level 5 before the spawning of the 850 birds, and if you do that, a Dynamic Punch Machamp can destroy many enemy central area Pokemon. For instance, Delphox, Gardevoir, you can just jump right on them and delete them. For Machamp, my two favorite held items are Razor Claw and Attack Weight. For your third held item, I think it depends on your build a little bit. If you're running Cross Chop, I think a Scope Lens is very good because you're leaning into the critical hits there. And if you're running Close Combat, I think you could go something with more of a nuker build, using a Weakness Policy, using an Energy Amp for your Unite move, even using a Focus Band for some survivability. Machamp's battle item is an eject button. It will let you set up or move your Unite move in some very, very impressive ways, and I think it's very necessary to reposition and get the absolute most value out of this Pokemon's Unite, which is crazy good. Machamp's biggest drawback might be that it is a 3-stage evolution Pokemon, and that can always be tough inside of a game like Pokemon Unite. You would rather be a Zacian where you don't have to worry about being level gated at all, so it's very important to continue farming with Machamp and make sure you hit your level 9 so you get your Unite move. Don't stay at level 8 for a long time battling the enemy, peel off, get your level 9, and come back so that you can devastate them with a Unite move. Emblems are going to be no different for this Pokemon. However, if you are leaning into critical hits, I would go with 6 brown critical hit for something like this. You still get a ton of attack damage, and you get a little extra critical hit for your Cross Chop build. And I'd like to give an all-rounder honorable mention to Tyranitar, a Pokemon that I think is still doing very, very good inside the game right now. It just doesn't perform as well inside the lane as something like Machamp or Zacian, and then the central area, you probably want to give this up to something else. Because this Pokemon is so experience hungry, there are times where it can be a bit of a liability in solo queue, but it's still an amazing carry Pokemon. Moving on to our defenders, we have a new king in the defender category, and that is Trevenant, one of the best Pokemon in the game right now, and without question an amazing solo queue carry defender. You output insane damage, you stun the enemy team, you're incredibly difficult to KO. Trevenant really has it all inside of Pokemon Unite. You never need to play this Pokemon in the central area or jungle, play it in either the top or bottom path, and I highly recommend stacking on this Pokemon. Not only are you extremely tanky, you also have a little bit of mobility so you can get in and out and get your stacks, and then once you hit level 5, you have the incredibly powerful Wood Hammer. While Curse is still amazing, Wood Hammer is definitely the way to go on this Pokemon right now. The stuns are unbelievable, and the reaction time on the move is insane. You are just able to put your enemy in an infinite amount of CC. Your second move is personal preference, but lately I've really been enjoying Pain Split because you can finally split the pain, and oh, what a time to do it. As far as items are concerned, I've often been double stacking and then running something like a Weakness Policy or Focus Band on this Pokemon. Getting the extra health from Eos Cookie is really, really amazing. And then as a battle item, I think a Potion is a great choice. I also think you could get away with an X speed so that you can follow your enemies, but with so much health and the ability to stay in combat for so long, Potion is actually an awesome choice for Trevenant. With boost emblems, I like to focus on getting a little extra HP and some attack, so I go 6 white, 4 brown for Trevenant. I could see if you wanted to switch that around, focus more on attack, but I like leaning into what a Pokemon is best at. Our next solo queue monster defender is Slowbro. Without question, Slowbro and Tree are neck and neck for the best defenders inside of Pokemon Unite. And if you're playing it solo, I don't think you can go wrong by playing the Scald Bro build. That is running Scald and Amnesia. Slowbro secures amazingly early in lane with Water Gun, and it evolves at level 4. So you can do so much damage and so much devastating output onto your opponents with this Pokemon incredibly early. All you need to learn is the timing of your Water Gun, and you are able to steal away most all wild Pokemon from your enemies. And then as soon as you hit level 4, you are constantly throwing hot water in their face. And I don't know if you've ever got hot water thrown in your face, but it is very unpleasant. Item-wise, I think stacking special attack specs makes a ton of sense for the Scald build, as well as possibly running something like a Spoon, choice specs so you can get even better secure, and then either another stacking item like an Aeos Cookie or a Focus Band for this Pokemon. If you want to run all glasses and really lean into damage, I can't really stop you because it's so incredibly good on Slowbro. Slowbro's battle item choice is either an eject button, X speed, or a potion. Potion actually synergizes with its amnesia, so if you use amnesia and then use potion, you actually get a huge burst of health. That's why I like running potion on this Pokemon. Boost emblem wise, you're either going to want to run 6 green, 7 black, or 6 green, 6 white. I personally usually run 6 green, 6 white so I can give my Pokemon even more health. Again, when I am focused on a Pokemon with boost emblems, I like to lean into their strengths. This just gives you even more HP. No matter where you play Slowbro, it's devastating, and its Unite move is one of the best in the game. Grab the enemy carry when your team is around them and just watch it get deleted. Our final solo queue carry defender is going to be Blastoise. Blastoise's Rapid Spin Water Spout build is unbelievable. If you stack some special attack specs, if you give it a Spoon, if you give it an Energy Amp, which by the way, with Blastoise, you're going to want to run an Energy Amp. This Pokemon is unbelievable. It has insanely high health, insanely high defenses, and it can jump into the backline and take down some of those very, very difficult to deal with mage Pokemon, or some of those long range attackers like Greninja, Cinderace, Decidueye. Blastoise is an insane tank that spins its way into winning. The biggest liability for Blastoise is that it is a 3-stage evolution Pokemon, and you often see players get stuck as Wartortle. Do not get stuck. Peel away from the fight. Make sure you get your level 9. It is the biggest difference in the entire game for this Pokemon. Don't let yourself get stuck at level 8 for too long. If you're very, very close to your level, it is so valuable for you to pick up a couple pieces of experience from wild Pokemon so that you can come back to the fight even stronger and have one of the most devastating unites in the game. Speaking of Blastoise's Unite move, something to notice is that the eject button is the best item for Blastoise for battle item, hands down, and that is because you can reposition your Unite. After you cast your Unite, you can eject in any direction so that you can move your Unite with it. It is a game changer. There is no question this is the battle item you want for this Pokemon. Emblem wise, I like 6 green, 6 white for Blastoise as well. The extra health is amazing because you have a ton of it, and then you get some extra damage here from green. I'll give a quick honorable mention to Greedent. Always a wild Pokemon, a crazy harasser, and a decent carry within its own right. If you're going to be playing it solo and you want to carry, I think Covet Belch has more options to do that than the Bullet Seed build. But in general, Greedent is just always on the outskirts, very, very close to being one of the top carries in the game in such a weird way. Let's talk about our supporters next. They're one of the weirder classes to actually be a carry inside the game, but there are some great carries inside of this class. Let's start with Eldegoss. Eldegoss is amazing in lane, either top or bottom, doesn't matter. This Pokemon running a Muscle Band, Rapid Fire Scarf, and then a third item of your choosing is just unbelievably strong. Its auto attacks are brutal. You can essentially stop anyone from stacking. You're good at level 1 basically. It's just such a brutal Pokemon. All the while you can also heal and shield your allies. Eldegoss is in such a great position in the game right now. Interestingly enough, all of Eldegoss's builds have a very, very similar win rate, no matter what moves you pick. I personally prefer Pollen Puff and Cotton Guard. I've noticed I still do a ton of damage, and being able to shield multiple enemies on your team at once can be a huge game changer in some big team fights. Something to notice is even though that you're trying to carry with Eldegoss, I would say EXP share is an absolute must on this Pokemon. Most supports should run this. It helps your ally get juiced up and strong, and you really don't need a ton of experience to do everything amazing that this Pokemon can already do. I would highly recommend experience share, even if you're trying to carry. Emblem-wise, I like to run 6 green, 7 black on this Pokemon, so my moves and healing do a little bit more, and I can cast a little bit faster. Our next carry supporter is Mr. Mime. While this Pokemon got gutted recently, and it does make a lot of sense, it was insane, Mr. Mime is still a very good carry in its own right. Confusion does absurd damage. You can still run Power Swap, heal your allies, and actually make them even stronger, or you could run Barrier so that you can do extra damage and just set up some areas where enemies really can't fight well at all. Not to mention probably the most devastating thing Mr. Mime has, which is its Unite move. A crazy Unite move that stuns enemies multiple times, stopping them from fighting in key fights, and it has a crazy low recharge time. Mr. Mime is still an amazing carry, even though they did tone it down considerably. If you're looking to carry on this Pokemon, I would recommend special attack specs, choice specs, and a slick spoon. Your scaling on special attack is very high, and if you get your stacks early, you are deleting Pokemon with confusion. Also, if you happen to be running Power Swap, more special attack means more healing for you and an ally. Given that Mr. Mime has a huge breakpoint at level 4, giving it its confusion, I think the best thing you can do with Mime is run to the other side of the map, get a couple quick stacks, get your level 4, and then start taking every single wild Pokemon away from your enemies using confusion. If you knock it into a wall or your own light screen or barrier, the damage is absurd. If you're level 4, which you almost always will be, for the center 850 spawn, you are just going to take all of them away from your enemies and maybe pick up some KOs as well. With Mr. Mime, you either want to run 6 green, 7 black, or 6 green, 6 white. It does have a lot of HP, and you can lean into that as well. As far as a battle item, either eject button or X speed, depending on personal preference. I actually like eject button because I can set up some very weird stuff with my Unite move. And while the supporter category is honestly filled with amazing Pokemon like Comfey, Sableye, Clefable, Blissey, I do have to say I think the best carry inside of this category is actually Hoopa for our 3rd slot. Phantom Force seems to be the move regardless of which other move you are taking. Now that you don't have to target it on an ally or enemy specifically, this is just incredible. It pushes people around, it does damage, it lets Hoopa reposition themselves. It's just, amazing. I actually really still love running Trick, but Hyperspace Hole probably has a little more value in most team comps, given that you can send an ally all the way back to base, they can fully heal, come back to the fight, and then you can send them again and they won't be stuck there. The recent buff to Hoopa's Hyperspace Hole has made this move unbelievable, and it also is a great last hitting tool. It casts almost instantly, does decent damage, and you'll see a lot of Hoopas secure objectives with Hyperspace Hole. Hoopa also never evolves and gets a move at level 4, so Hoopa is in a great position at any point in the game, which is why you're going to want to run item set looking something like this. Muscle Band, Rapid Fire Scarf, and EXP Share. The EXP Share will not hold you back, and it will help your ally possibly get level 5 for those 850 birds. At the same time, Muscle Band and Rapid Fire Scarf, because your auto attacks are amazing, you are doing them constantly, you are stunning enemies, you're just a lot like Eldegoss in that you are a machine gun of damage. And then of course we have to mention that Hoopa's Unite move cooldown got a buff, and its Unite move is one of the better ones inside the entire game, allowing your entire team to reposition themselves, join you for a fight, and then also turning Hoopa into an absolute monster for a little while. Its ability to have fists fly out of space and stun enemies is incredible, dealing tons of damage, but more importantly giving them a huge area effect stun. Hoopa is a really incredible Pokemon at many of the big fights inside the game because of its Unite move. And also, if you time it correctly, if your team goes down inside of a big fight, you're able to actually wait and use your Unite move when you notice their respawn timer is getting close enough and bring your allies back into the fight, a la Doctor Strange. For emblems, I like running 6 green, 7 black on Hoopa, and then battle items, it's up to your choice. I've seen people run eject, people run full heal. I kind of like running X attack, even though it's very, very cheesy. I just think it's super fun on Hoopa. Again, the support category is stacked. Sableye and Comfy have insane win rates, but I wouldn't consider them necessarily solo queue carries, so I'm not putting them on this list. However, really every supporter inside the game, except for maybe one, sorry Wigglytuff, is a top tier choice right now. Let's move on to our Speedsters, and the Speedster category is dominated by one Pokemon for sure. That is Dodrio. Without question, the best solo queue Speedster inside Pokemon Unite, hands down. Dodrio entered the game with Tri-Attack being its best moveset, and now both Tri-Attack and Drill Peck get a ton of play after Drill Peck got some much needed buffs, and even though Tri-Attack was nerfed, it's still an amazing move. Dodrio can be played in the central area, but you don't necessarily need to put it there. Sometimes I just like playing it in lane because you're able to get your stacks easier, and you're going to want to stack on this Pokemon. If you're running the Tri-Attack build, you're going to want to double stack with this. The more health you have, the higher healing you're going to get out of Tri-Attack, and honestly, Eos Cookie on a Pokemon like this is really, really good. If you're running Drill Peck, you might want to drop that Eos Cookie for either a Score Shield or one of my two favorites, a Float Stone or Energy Amp. Energy Amp makes your Unite move even stronger and come up faster, and with Drill Peck, you kind of want to delete the entire team using it, so I've been loving running Energy Amp lately. The final item that you're going to want to run on both builds, however, is the Razor Claw. Dodrio is set up perfectly for this item. You use a move, you have a big boosted attack, you do an extra attack after you use your Drill Peck. Either way, you're doing a ton of extra damage, you're slowing enemies, it helps your clear speed. Razor Claw is a must for this Pokemon. It will take some getting used to, but after you figure out sort of the flow of Dodrio, your most important job is getting last hits if you're in lane, and then securing those big scores so that you can stack up. And if you're in the central area, you're going to enter either top or bottom path at level 5, giving you access to one of your two moves. You're going to either use Drill Peck or Tri-Attack to KO all of the enemies inside that lane. If you're using Drill Peck, you can actually steal away all of the wild Pokemon essentially by pulling them to your team's side, or use that pressure to push towards the enemy and drill right into their squishy Pokemon and eat their brains. This Pokemon is the one Pokemon who does eat Pokemon's brains. Battle item wise, you're gonna want to run full heal. Regardless, this Pokemon getting stunned is devastating. It will hurt its sprint gauge insanely. Definitely run full heal on this Pokemon. And then as far as emblems are concerned, there are a few ways to go. You can run it with high cooldown and some damage. Now that we have more emblems that let you do this, black, brown, you're actually able to do this a little bit better. Or you could just run a ton of attack on this Pokemon. I think that would be totally fine. I've also done some cheesy stuff with extra move speed, which has worked pretty well also. Something to also notice with Dodrio is it gets a big boost to its attack damage once it uses its Unite move. So you're going to want to use this Unite move to knock up a few enemies and then also devastate them with your moves. Either Drill Peck or Tri-Attack. Look for their squishy Pokemon and eliminate them in the big fights. Our next best solo carry, Speedster, is Zoroark. This Pokemon released pretty strong and then got some weird nerfs, but it actually has been shining with its Feint build. Night Slash not seeing as much play and not doing as well, in my opinion, as the Feint attack build. While I like Feint Attack Cut, it seems like Feint Attack Shadow Claw is the way to go. The knockups are just incredible with this Pokemon, and once you understand the flow of its combo, you can do some devastating damage to enemies. This actually feels like one of the Pokemon that can counter some of the slipperier Pokemon in the game, like Mew. You can play this Pokemon in the jungle so you can get an early level 5, but it actually doesn't do too poorly in path, and this Pokemon stacks very, very well. In fact, I've often been double stacking on this Pokemon using an attack weight and an Eos Cookie. Item-wise, I think a Float Stone is also amazing. Weakness Policy, not too bad. Razor Claw, not too bad. And an Energy Amp isn't too bad either to do some extra damage with that really powerful Unite move. Just like Dodrio, the battle item is full heal, definitely. Being stunned even for a moment could mean the end for Zoroark, so you're going to want to get out of those bad situations. If you're new to Zoroark, take it into the practice area. You have to understand how this combo works, how you're able to set up Feint Attack, then use your other move to reposition it, go back through to Feint Attack so that you can finally unlock that big damage leap that you can do with this Pokemon. This is a very mechanically intensive Pokemon, so you need to practice it a lot to do well. Also, Zoroark's passive Illusion seems kind of cheesy, but you can use it to actually negate damage from enemies. One of the easiest ways to do this is with Mew's boosted basic attack. You see it coming a mile away, it travels at you pretty slowly, and if you use Illusion at the right time, you negate any damage thrown at you for a very brief period. Start to learn to work Illusion into your combos so that you can figure out when you're able to actually tank a bit of damage. Zoroark's big weakness, and a weakness of a lot of speedsters, is what happens later inside the game. The best thing you could do is just try to make sure that you're KOing squishy Pokemon on the enemy team and you are not caught by their big frontline tanks. Emblem-wise, I think you need to definitely have 6 brown for this Pokemon. You just want all the extra attack you can get. Our final speedster is a little tough because there are 2 that I'm kind of deciding between, but I have to give it to Gengar. Both of Gengar's builds are pretty strong right now, while Shadow Ball Dream Eater seeming to be the better solo carry build. I would highly recommend playing Gengar in the central area if you can. Once Gengar has a level advantage and is able to pick up a few KOs, it can snowball the game incredibly hard. With Shadow Ball Dream Eater, every time you get a KO, you are able to reset the cooldown of Dream Eater, and Shadow Ball is already on a very, very low cooldown, so you can use this to chain a massive string of KOs. You're just gonna have to watch out for all of these super tanky Pokemon inside the game. If you're able to, KO some of the squishier ones before you try to deal with the enemy Trevenant. For held items, I think Choice Specs, Wise Glasses, and Spoon are very, very good for this Pokemon. However, you do get rid of a ton of the enemy special defense using Shadow Ball, so if you don't want to run a Slick Spoon, you can run something like a Shell Bell, Focus Band, Wise Glasses. You also can stack on this Pokemon if you feel comfortable stacking special attack specs. For a battle item, I prefer an eject button for repositioning purposes, but if you like using full heal more, I can't argue with you. There are a ton of stuns inside of the game right now. Again, for Gengar, level advantage, KO squishy Pokemon, rinse, repeat. That is what you are trying to do with Gengar. Emblem-wise, 6 green, 7 black is a no-brainer for this Pokemon. My honorable speedster mention goes to Absol, who I think is actually pretty dang good inside the game right now. It just doesn't get a lot of play. I have an Absol video on my channel if you want to learn more about it. Talonflame and Zeraora, I think, are decent carries in the right hands, but just a little underwhelming inside of this meta. Finally, our carry attackers. There are so many good attackers inside Pokemon Unite that it's hard to pick just a few, but I'm going to try to whittle it down in this video, and you'll notice that they all have something in common. I'm going to pick a lot of special attackers. We'll talk about some attack-based attackers, but wow, special attackers are doing so well inside the game right now. Let's start off with one of the craziest, and that's Mew. Ever since Mew's release, it has been incredible. The ability to switch its moves on command is amazing. Electro Ball seems to be the early move choice right now, as it was one of the moves that wasn't nerfed after almost everything else in Mew's kit was. Even still, Solar Beam, Surf, they all have incredible value. Mew takes a little time to learn, but once you do, you find out that you've got a Pokemon that can attack at extreme range and then also somehow get away from every bad situation. Its Unite move makes it invincible and untargetable for a little while. It has a Solar Beam at level 1. It's just absolutely insane. Mew is an unbelievable attacker inside Pokemon Unite. The build is Choice Specs, Wise Glasses, and now you don't really need to stack on this Pokemon because Slick Spoon has taken that 3rd slot, letting you do insane damage to high special defense Pokemon, also giving you a little more special attack and HP to boot. For a battle item, I think having an eject button makes total sense. You can reposition some of your moves and you can just get away from enemies easier. You already can escape them pretty well, so I don't know if you need an X speed, but if you like to run it, go for it. Mew can be played top, bottom, or center. You really can do anything you want with this Pokemon. It does well with some extra experience, but it does well at level 1. Start to learn the threshold so that you can last hit wild Pokemon inside lane. Once you have that, you can really dominate the enemy team. You also can make some sneaky plays where you're hiding in the tall grass, stealing away opponents' buffs, stealing objectives at insane range. Mew is just crazy. For boost emblems, 6 green, 7 black, all the way for Mew. Our next attacker on the list, Espeon. Espeon got massive buffs recently. Its Psyshock range is absurd. The damage this Pokemon outputs is incredible. Its basic boosted attack got an increase in damage. Espeon is just, it's just the thing. It's just the thing. Like I said, you're going to see a trend for our attackers here because this Slick Spoon has really done also a number for these Pokemon. Choice Specs, Wise Glasses, Slick Spoon with an eject button, not only to get away from situations, but also to move in and reposition for your Unite move. Espeon is just so incredibly good right now. You definitely want to play it in lane. You don't need the central area. It gets Psyshock at level 4, and then you can take wild Pokemon away from every single member of the enemy team. Your range is absurd. The damage is crazy. It can stun multiple enemies. This Pokemon is just so good. As far as its second move is concerned, you can either run Future Sight or Psybeam. I think Psybeam actually is going to be a little bit better for you. However, Future Sight is really fun and it does give you some resets for this Pokemon. Psybeam just lets you chain stuns as well as output damage into enemies in sort of this forking tree-like web of damage. It's pretty amazing. Either way you go, I think it's great. Psyshock, however, definitely your first move. That is one of the craziest single moves inside of Pokemon Unite. For Espeon, 6 green, 7 black to help with the cooldowns a little bit. You want extra special attack and you just want to be able to use your moves as fast as possible. With Espeon, once you hit level 4, don't be afraid to push your advantage. And then once you have your Unite move, if you catch enemies with a Psyshock and a Psybeam, you can jump in with your eject button, use your Unite move, and just start to devastate the enemy team. Don't be afraid to carry with this Pokemon because it certainly carries. Our final attacker was almost impossible to choose, so I'm just going to say that Glaceon, Delphox, and Gardevoir are all pretty amazing right now. Glaceon probably edging them out slightly, but still at the same time, all of these Pokemon are unbelievable inside the game. You're going to see very similar item setups and builds for them. I also have videos on my channel about all 3 of these Pokemon. If I had to pick one, I think Glaceon is maybe the best choice, also because both of its builds are very, very solid right now. That being said, you really can't go wrong with these 3 mages. And of course, I have to mention one other, which is Cramorant, another Pokemon that's doing extremely well. I think the big thought here is that Slick Spoon is just amazing on all of these special attackers right now. And if you're playing any of them, you're doing pretty well. Before we leave our attackers, I think I should mention that our AD carry attackers are still doing okay inside the game, with the best hyper carry probably being Greninja. So Cinderace, Greninja, Duraludon, Decidueye all have a place inside the game. I just don't think they are the top choices this season. The highest win rate currently amongst them is from Duraludon, probably because its secure is still amazing and people sleep on this Pokemon. But I think the strongest hyper carry on the list is Greninja. If I was playing Greninja, I would be running a Muscle Band, Rapid Fire Scarf, and a Scope Lens, and I would be leaning into the 6 brown build. In fact, that's a pretty good build for all of those 80 carries except for Decidueye, who's a little more specialized. So there you have it, the top solo carries for each role inside of Season 10. Let me know what your favorite is in the comment. Who did I miss? Who do you think is crazy undervalued right now? It's not Charizard, even though I love Charizard. Thank you all for watching. Thank you for listening. I hope you enjoyed this, and if you really did, share it with some people. It helps me a lot. Love you guys. Goodbye.